In the most recent video that I made to you, I was talking to you about trust. And what I wanted to impress upon you was the importance of trusting yourself. That when you make a decision of some kind and you make that decision and then you proceed, you're at a fork in the road and you choose left and then you go left, that moment that you have later on where you go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have taken the left turn. Maybe that was the wrong thing to do. That when you do this indicates that you don't trust yourself. That's what the lack of self-trust is. And that when you do this, when you go left and say, oh, maybe I did the wrong thing, you are shooting yourself in the own foot. You are introducing conflict into your psychology. You are splitting yourself. Whereas before, a moment before you doubted yourself, you were congruent, you were in alignment. All of you was moving in one particular direction. And then after that moment where you go, maybe I did the wrong thing, now you're questioning yourself. Now your self-trust is no longer there. Now there are two entities. There's that of you which has chosen and has gone left, and that of you which says, maybe this shouldn't be, maybe this is wrong. And now as a result of this conflict, now there's suffering, now there's confusion, now there's paralysis, now everything has slowed down. And so my argument back then and my argument now is that not only practically speaking is this a useless thing to do, to go, maybe I did the wrong thing for the reasons that I just mentioned, but also from the perspective of truth, it's no good either. Because if you say, maybe I took the wrong turn, there's no baked in information out there to consult about what was the right move for you. That doesn't exist. In order for it to exist, you need to have some sort of entity that's there to decide what's right and what's wrong. And then you need a series of reasons, and you need a philosophy about the rightness and wrongness. And that philosophy is just made out of content that you make up. And so trust is just making a decision and going forward. Trust is also looking at decisions that you made back then and going, good, and being in alignment with them and removing the conflict that way. Trust also takes the form of showing up here and in a general state of readiness, a general state of willingness to say, yes, like whatever life has for me now, I'm open to it. And just imagine for a minute the liberation and the vulnerability and how it feels like just living out loud, how it feels like really fucking living. If you approach life like whatever life has in store for me, I'm ready for it. Starting right now, starting in this moment. I'm completely receptive to life. I'm completely open to life right now. It's exciting, right? It feels like something is switched on. So that's trust, but I wanted to come here and talk to you today about something different, sort of a sibling to trust that we could call knowing. I want to discuss knowing with you. And as we do, I want for you to keep in mind this idea of trust as we go. You'll see the similarities and you'll see the differences. And I would like for you to imagine both of these things falling under a greater umbrella, which is the umbrella of awakening, of being an awakened person, which is something we'll get to a little bit later in a different video. So knowing, as I was saying in a newsletter that I sent out to my list, there is a paradox around knowing where on one hand we know and on another hand we don't. And both of these are true at the same time. That's the nature of this paradox. The way in which we don't know is on the level of basically any information. It can be very humbling to imagine everything that you've ever been told that we've just taken on faith. Like take chemistry, atoms, electrons, and molecules, cells and cellular biology. Have you ever seen an atom in your life? Have you ever seen a cell? Well, no, you haven't. So you're taking that on faith. Like the very best we could do is say, well, I know that we have cells because if I do this, my body reacts in one way. And if I do that, my body reacts in the other way. And this tells us that we have cells. Maybe so, but really even then we're only interacting with the experiments, right? We don't really know. We're just going based on good faith of what we've been told. And you could extend this very far. Like you could extend this to mathematics. Like if I say 1 + 1 = 2, you still have to take that on faith. And you might say, no, Brent, 1 + 1 = 2. That's just how it is. Look, you have 1 and then you have 1 and it makes 2 of them. Okay, great. But then I come up with an argument for you that 1 + 2 = 1. And I explain why. And here's my math. Here's my math for how I arrived at it. And now we have two different maths. And now we have a problem. Now we have to discuss which one is canon. The time's a big one. What time is it right now? Look at your clock. It says it's 4 o'clock. It says it's 10 a.m. My daughter is in a big why phase. She asks why this, why that, and she'll ask questions that are incredibly hard to answer because of how simple they are. Like, for example, she'll say, Daddy, why is this car here in the parking lot? Why is it here? How do you answer that? I don't know, just because it is, right? And I would tell her, hey, it's 10 a.m. And she's like, why? I'm like, man, I have no idea. So I'm telling you all of this so that you will consider that knowing something is not a given, that you can take anything that you believe you know and apply even a little bit of questioning to it, and suddenly it's not so secure. It's just like stuff that you've been told along the way. Okay? You could extend it further and say, okay, you're looking at something. Say you're looking at the screen that my video is appearing on right now. Do you know for sure that that screen is there? Or is it just what your eyes are telling you? Is it just what your physical body and your nerve endings are telling you? Okay. How could we possibly know what is there beyond our nerve endings? What does that reality look like beyond what is converted into photons for our eyes and electrical sensations for our nervous system? What's actually out there beyond the screen of our own perception? I don't know. Do you know? Who knows? Are there other conscious beings out there besides yourself, or are we all just, unconscious automatons and you are just in your own one particular solipsistic dream? How do you know? Could you ever possibly know? Artificial intelligence, is it conscious? Will it ever be conscious? One day in our very near-term future, we're going to relate to robots that will be extremely convincing of being conscious. They'll act like conscious entities. And we will just have to assume they're not. But even if they were, how would we know? How would we possibly know, right? So I'm taking you through all of this just to hopefully shake up your sense of knowing, and also hopefully not to destabilize you too much. But I mean, you could, if you take what I'm offering here and go all the way with it, just continue with this after the video is over, it will destabilize you. It will, and it can be very distressing. So, go carefully, because we're addressing the psychological structure that you have created to interact with life, right? And then you have to just suddenly contend with the arbitrariness of it. Oh, geez, this is just a structure that I was given. It's not baked in. It's not necessarily true. It's just my way of taking the infinite morass of all that is, everything out there, that big soup of reality, and filtering into something that I can work with, that I can actually grapple with and make sense of. Because if you didn't have that, you'd lose your mind, right? So that's the importance and the danger of approaching your psychological framework, your framework for how you contend with reality. But nevertheless, in order to become awakened beings, in order to access the deeper realms of wisdom that are available for us, and even to become self-realized or to become God-conscious, to do this, everything needs to be questioned. Everything. Nothing is sacred in the psychology. Everything is fed into the wood chipper, and then whatever remains. Whatever survives the hardest and harshest scrutiny, that will be true. And so in my finding, because it's my most sincere endeavor not to parrot anything to you from spiritual teachers that I've read or listened to, but to speak to you from my own experience, that no information survives the wood chipper. And so that's part one of the journey of knowing, is grappling with the depth and the fathomlessness, the immensity of your unknowing, just how truly little you know. And a lot of people stop there. I stopped there for a long time. But then the problem with that is that you can't really function in the world without knowing anything, because you have to be able to know things. And so I've been questioning recently what it might be like to know. And I confess to you that when I imagine knowing, being somebody who knows, being a knower in the world, I suddenly feel excited again. I feel empowered, and I feel like I have a place in the world. I feel like an active, creative, powerful agent in the world. So I was exploring this a little bit just before writing the newsletter that I was telling you about, which is entitled Knower or Be the Knower, something along these lines. And I realized that it's actually possible to know without necessarily putting something in the blank spot. So you can know, or rather put it this way, it's not necessarily that you know that blank. You don't know for sure that there's a sun in the sky, that there's a moon in the sky. You don't know for sure that your name is what it says on your birth certificate. None of that you can really know for sure. It was just told to you on good faith, indicated to you by your physical senses. But check this out. Remove the blank spot for a minute and just stop at the knowing bit. And try this out. Say, I know. I know. And try it from a few different angles. Let's get at it holographically. So try, I am a knower. I am the knower. I am the one who knows. I know. I know. I know. I know. I know. And what you'll find, as I'm finding, that when I say I know, I come into congruence, which is a state that I'm extremely covetous of. I'm always trying to know. I'm always wanting to be congruent. I'm always wanting to step into my experience, to wake up, to be a live player in my life, to be a live agent, not some sort of dead leaf flitting about in the wind, not some sort of pinball being slapped around by life. I want to be in my power. I want to be an active agent in the world. I want to have free will. I want to use that free will. I know. And so what happens is, and you'll, if you say it right, there's almost even a sense of hubris. It's not actually hubris, but it feels like hubris because it feels like a gift that you can't quite give to yourself. It's too good for you. It creates too much confidence. You know, for those of us who struggle with confidence, like it's the reason why we struggle with confidence is because we believe we shouldn't be confident, that it's wrong or bad or unsafe to be confident for some reason, right? And so a similar thing applies here. You can say, I know, and if it feels like hubris, well, that's because you're not permitting yourself to receive your own gift. You're not, like, this is your own knowing, for Christ's sake. It's your own, it's you, it's your inheritance. You came into the world with it. It was taken from you by no one, and nobody can give it back to you. We would prefer to imagine that somebody over there took it from us so that they could be responsible. Notice how interesting it is to, like, you know, it feels so comfortable having a parent who's responsible for us. And in a similar way, there's a comfort that comes from being victimized by somebody. So if my life is fucked up, you know, if something's wrong with my situation, it's because of him. That feels kind of good. It's out of my hands. It's not my fault, right? But now we see what's given up. What do we give up when we enter into that delicious, comfortable form of victimhood? It means we're no longer the authors of our life. We're no longer a powerful player in the world. So we take that back and we say, I know. You walk into a situation and you say, I know. Like, here's an example, just to flesh this out. I've been teaching some piano again recently, which I do on and off just over the course of my life. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I've been really enjoying it lately, really enjoying it. And I have old conditioning around it where I used to, like, when I did in my younger days, I was sort of afraid of, sort of uncomfortable around the parents that I would deal with because I felt a little bit like a fraud, or I felt like I had to put up the front or the pretense of a piano teacher. I had to look really composed and like I had my shit together. And so I would always feel like a little kid, you know, with the parents that I was dealing with, and it made me nervous. Not that they give me any reason to think that way. It's just how it was. And that still showed up. I'm a 40-year-old man. I'm like the same age as these parents. and it comes up again. So I challenged myself to go into the teaching situation as a knower. A knower. And what does that mean? I know how to conduct this lesson. It means I know what I'm doing. I know that the lesson's going to be great. I know that this is good. I know I'm supposed to be here. I know that I deserve the money. I know that this is a good business transaction. I know how to do this. And so I come in and I walk into the house just as the most natural human being you could ever possibly imagine. Just natural. And I walk in and sit down in the teacher chair and the kids at the bench, just natural. We sit down and say, hey, how are you? What are you going to do for Halloween? 'Cause it's almost Halloween. Great. Where do you want to start? What's your favorite song to play? Great. All right, let's go from there. And then with all the self-consciousness gone, me and the child, we're free to just lock in. We just fucking lock in. It's so good. You have no idea. It's so good. You just lock in. The student disappears. The teacher disappears. There's just, and I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm not trying to prove myself to the parent. I'm not trying to prove anything to the kid or to myself. We just get stuck into something interesting. We just find something interesting and go. Because once we found something interesting, then an impression is made, learning is occurring, expansion is occurring, music is being internalized for that child in a way that makes sense to him and her. They have a learning experience that they will never forget. I have a teaching experience I'll never forget. And all because I showed up as the knower. This is how powerful it is. Showing up for you on this camera, as I sometimes reference, I try not to do it too much at the risk of being overly meta, but you know, like it's not the most comfortable, natural thing for me to sit in front of the camera and talk to you. And so what that means is I sit down and I put on a little bit of an affect. I put on just a slight bit of a persona, because like I have conditioning and kind of trauma around offering discourse and this kind of thing. And so what I've realized more than ever as a result of this knowing piece, that all I want to do is like sit here, have a thing that I have to say, offer it to you in the most natural way possible with nothing in between. Nothing. It's not filtering through an insecurity, not filtering through a fear, not filtering through a manipulation, not trying to accomplish something or do anything. I just want to have a pipeline from my unconscious mind to this camera right here and have there be nothing but a free flow there. And that being value. And I'm not saying that to say that like my verbal vomit is like value, but what I am saying is that my connection to source, my source of wisdom is value. This is what I've come to know. And not me specifically, everybody. This is the basis of my coaching. This applies to you too. That there's the value of your source to connection, your particular spin on what you're here to say, your particular signature is desired and wanted. And so all we want to do is just get all of the fear and insecurity out of the way. And again, this is done by being the knower. I know what I'm saying. I know what's true. So that's it. I'm shifting my coaching offering while we're on this subject. It's not strictly coaching anymore. Productivity becomes an increasingly small part of what I do. And there are two major things that are happening with my practice. So you should listen if you are interested. If you've ever felt like you wanted to participate, this is the direction I'm taking it in now. Coaching remains an aspect, but the sessions that I have with people resemble more and more over time therapy sessions, which is why I've started going to school to become a therapist. At the same time, there's been an increased desire to speak from intuition as opposed to from a coaching platform. So like things will appear to me intuitively, insights, hits of wisdom, of intuition, and I just want to give them. And so I'm saying this because I used to attract a lot of materialist, rationalist people to my practice, and I would just debate with them all day long. And now I'm switching to more of a coaching/healing practice, where if you're down for it, we just show up and open up healing space, and whatever comes through, comes through. And you can shift through that. And it's much, Much cleaner, much simpler, much more powerful that way. If you'd like a free session, you can get one. There's a link for that below. And for the time being, that is all. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.